This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich,
And I'm Kelley Gilster of 618 Studios.
and we are on a mission to help wedding filmmakers and photographers level up their businesses so you can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here.
Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Petrinovich, joined on this beautiful Tuesday by my friend and co-host, Kelley Gilster.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Taylor. How are you? What is new?
Yeah, I am great. I'm actually, if I'm being totally honest, just super excited for today's conversation because we have such different personalities and approaches to this topic that we're going to be talking about today. And I think it's going to be kind of a good one where listeners can kind of identify maybe who they, relate to more or get little takeaways. And I think it's going to be really great. But I have to say that you're probably like the master of networking and relationships.
Okay, if you've read the title of this episode, we're calling it an introvert versus extrovert take on marketing, which is something that Taylor and I just kind of decided on a whim to talk about because, like she said, we are so different in our just regular personalities, being an extrovert and or introvert and an extrovert. I myself am an extrovert, Taylor's an introvert, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's like depending on where you fall in that category, one of two ways. I just want you guys first to kind of know that there are filmmakers and photographers, vendors throughout the industry that either identify as themselves as introverts or as extroverts, and people still have thriving businesses in both areas, right, Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can attest to that. Being an introvert, I feel like I'm doing okay, but a few weeks ago during our All-Star series, which is still going on, this is just kind of a brief interruption of that series. We had on probably who I would consider to be like the most extreme extrovert, and that is Chris with Storybox Cinema. Like he is like the full opposite of myself. Like I don't know about you, but no, actually I do know about you. This is not true for you, but it's true for me. I could go weeks on end without interacting with another human and I would feel just fine about that, if I'm being totally honest. I like find the most peace just like being alone and with myself. And it takes a lot out of me, like interacting with people all day, like through networking events, or if I'm just even out in public, not even talking to anybody, just like around people. I feel like I need to immediately like come home and just sit in a room in quiet for like an hour.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. No, Chris, I think could even give me a run for my money. He is so extroverted. I don't know if it's also just like the season of life I'm in currently, like young kids, there's a lot being drained out of you. Like I can tell that I'm not like to my tip top extrovert self shape that I once was in my 20s without kids. But I will say, okay, first, I think it's super important for us to define what an introvert is or an extrovert is because I
Mm.
hear a lot people say, "Oh, I'm an introverted extrovert," or "I'm an extroverted introvert." And I actually fully believe that you can't be. You have to be one or the other. And so let's look at what the true definition of an introvert or an extrovert is. And it's the it's the simple question of how do you recharge your batteries? So think of yourself in a state of having your battery drained, completely depleted, right? How is it that now you're going to recharge your batteries? Is that going to be spending a vacation on your own, seeing nobody, reading books, listening to a podcast, doing that? Like, is that what's going to recharge you? Or is it like scheduling a ton of dinners out with people to get your batteries recharged? Taylor, do you agree? Have you heard kind of like, oh, I'm an introverted extrovert or that kind of thing where you try to like live in both lands?
Yeah, no, I definitely have. And I agree that it probably can only be one. Um, but I think there's confusion because people maybe think that if you are an introvert, that means you can't handle social situations. And that is definitely not the case. Like, I feel like I simply have to flip a switch and like put like give a lot of extra energy in order to like be on in social situations, whereas like my natural state and where I get energy from, or have my battery recharge, is from being alone. Like we're talking alone, like not my husband, not my kids, like me by myself in my house. Like that is what I need as a person. But that's not to say like I can't thrive in social situations. I'm not, I mean, sure, maybe I'm a little awkward. That's fine, aren't we all? But like I'm not like terribly awkward. Like I do okay. I can have conversation. Like I know how to, be in social situations. It doesn't mean that we can't. It's just that
Totally.
there's kind of a limit, and then we need to go the opposite. Whereas maybe like if you spend all day by yourself, you're like, okay, I need some people, you know?
Yeah. So
hmm
I'm actually married to an introvert. I don't know about you, Taylor. Is James an
Mm.
introvert or an extrovert?
He is an extrovert for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
how
So we're like
interesting.
opposites.
And
Yeah.
then we like married our counterparts. That is
hmm
a whole nother conversation of being married to an introvert extrovert because and then working, Paul and I working together. Let's say we just shot a 12-hour wedding day. The batteries, everyone's batteries are pretty much depleted after a 12-hour wedding day. It's a hard day. Now, after the wedding, if the photography team or the planners or whoever said, "Hey, let's go grab drinks afterwards after this,"
That's my
this
nightmare.
would, oh my gosh, I would be like elated. I would be so excited. I will take every single opportunity of like, yes, I'm going to do that. We are absolutely doing that so I can recharge my batteries. Whereas Paul is like you, Taylor, he's like, that sounds terrible. I want to drive through Taco Bell, go home, watch The Office or Community or whatever his like series is that he's currently just rewatching, and just sit in silence and come down off of this like wedding buzz.
Yep. 100%. I'm a Paul. At parties, like in our personal life and stuff, like I'm the one who wants to leave first, and James is like, "Nope, we're gonna be the last ones to leave." And I'm like, "No, let me go
Oh
find
my
a
gosh.
cat to pet."
Well, I think that also, because Paul and I have done some networking, like we've attended some networking events as well, or like networking retreats. We have never been to Engage, but we've been to other types of things. And now that we've been married for 14 years, had our business for 14 years, like it's not that I will drag him to like continue like staying up for that party or the after party or the party after the after party. He'll definitely like kind of Irish exit at some point of the night, and then I'll be the one that's like still out chatting with people till 4 a.m.
Okay, so actually, okay, you guys, please forgive us. We don't have like an outline for this episode. It's just a totally candid conversation. But since you brought up the concept of like an engage or these networking events, like I want to talk about that. Okay, so I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to go live, but we're either very closely approaching Engage Nemacolin in June, or we're just coming off it. I'm not sure which one, but I'm going, and this will be my second Engage. And I have to say, it's fine. Like for me personally, as an introvert, like I did just fine with Engage. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of late nights, and I, push my boundaries. I'm usually even like a go to bed at 8:30 kind of person. And like I was out till 2 a.m. and then up again at 5:30 or 6, to get ready for the day. And um if for a 4-day period where there's like a start and a stop time, I can handle that because I know it's not just gonna be forever. But yeah, coming off of that a few days later, like it is a silent plane ride home by myself and some time in my jammies on the couch after that to kind of like recharge. But I have to say, like, I do think that networking events have their place, and whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, like I think it's something to definitely consider because that's been part of my personal networking strategy. We were talking a little bit before we hit record, but I approach relationships in the industry very similar to relationships in my personal life. And the way that usually looks for me is having really just like a handful of like really close friends. Like we're talking 4, 5, like max, like close friends that like you're just my default people. You're who I want to hang out with, and then maybe like a few kind of outliers that like fill the gaps. And that's kind of how I approach relationships in the industry too. I have like my go-to people. They're few, but like good connections. And anything else is kind of like extra. And maybe that's because I really don't like small talk. And whenever you like form new relationships, like that's kind of what those conversations look like. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's like go deep. Like, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. I need to know those things.
That's so funny. No, I think that's so true. I think a lot of people, if they think about if they're an extrovert or introvert, and then how that's related to how they network in their business, it is really similar to how you kind of approach life, with those personal relationships too. I think I used to be just such an extreme introvert, like I said, in my 20s before kids and stuff. And
Introvert or
now it's
extrovert? Hold on. Which
Sorry,
one?
extrovert.
Okay,
Yes,
got it. Okay.
extrovert.
I was like, hold
Yes,
on.
so extreme extrovert. Um, so much so that it was like next level. And then now I still very much am still an extrovert. It's just that I'm pulled in so many directions with like kid things too. But still like I have always enjoyed having like a big group around me, and also like going back to like years and years ago, this is like how much of an extrovert I am. When I was in college, and say my roommate was out of town or like back at home visiting family and she wasn't there for the weekend, I would get so incredibly lonely. And so when it came time to studying in my dorm room, I would actually choose to like pack up everything I needed to like all my studying resources and just go and sit down in the library to be surrounded by people. I didn't even need to be talking to people or anything like that. Of course, I'm studying and I'm focused, but just having like the energy of lots of people around me, like fed my soul and made me so happy. That's how extroverted I am. And so that's kind of like, I think for me, like with networking things, it never I don't even think I really understood what networking was because it was just such a part of like my everyday normal activity of like getting to know people and like making friendships and loving the small talk and getting to know people, that then when I heard that was called networking, I'm like, "Oh, that's just like living life and like getting to know people, and like it's just
Mhm.
an everyday thing." And so I think that's also something to think about, is that we all have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to our businesses. Like some people are very good calculated risk takers, and other people kind of sit on the sidelines a little bit longer. Or some people are really, really strong in their technical skills, and other people like just kind of skate by. And then other people are really good at networking, and some people need to like refine that muscle a little bit more. And that's totally okay. But it is important to make sure that you are kind of hitting all of those areas of our business in a way that nothing's feeling too neglected. So even though
Yeah.
Taylor's, not an introvert, she's pushing herself to go to engage and form those relationships in like a networking conference.
Yeah, so true. And I kind of want to talk about networking a little bit too from maybe like a different angle because I think that what you said some people are like calculated risk takers and kind of taking this word calculated and maybe applying it to networking is such an interesting concept because I think that for those who are unlike Kelley, maybe you're not just like a natural social butterfly. It's a little bit more stepping out of your comfort zone. I know that's definitely the case for me. I have to take a very conscious approach to it and like make myself do it. It has to be on my to-do list or else it's not going to happen. But I don't think that has to mean it comes from a place of only wanting to get something in return. I think that's such an important distinction too, because I absolutely have relationships and will continue to foster relationships that I know for a fact are never going to result in revenue in my pocket. And that's totally fine with me. That's not the only purpose of networking. I think that it goes so far beyond that. And kind of taking it maybe a step further is people who've been around for a while can sniff that out so fast. If you're literally just in it for a quick buck or you're not like nurturing the relationship for reasons beyond revenue, then people are not going to be very receptive to that. So I think that although like we teach, very specific ways of how to like form new planner connections, like within our course and our mastermind, things like that, like I think you also need to, take that with a grain of salt and realize that it's not just a prescription for your business where that's all you're doing. There's a lot of supplemental things that should be happening in addition to that and supplemental like motivators, right? So like one thing is we like working with people that we like, and it's great to find your people, like no matter what kind of personality you have, what your background's like, anything like that, like there's going to be groups of people out there or cliques or however you want to phrase it that either are a good fit for you or not a good fit for you. And I think it's okay to like realize where you are and try to seek out people who like you have things in common with. Um, I don't know. What do you think, Kelley?
No, I think that's so, so true. Like when we're talking about networking, we're not talking about this like sleazy sales tactic of like us kind of like, trying to just, like you said, get that quick buck and all that stuff. Like networking really should be approached with how you want people to view your character. It's almost also like it's like
Mhm.
almost a character building technique. Um in people getting to know like who you are as a person. And like you said, the ones that have been in the industry for years and years and years, like they will know very quickly if you're like year 3 in and you're trying to like network with them and then all of a sudden they just like aren't hearing from you anymore. Like that's a bummer. They know that like what they wanted from you was like a direct referral or like money in their pocket. And that's not what this industry is about. Like you probably like I Paul and I decided to become wedding filmmakers because we really genuinely loved people. And as we were planning our wedding, we loved the people that we were working with and like the vendor team that we had selected. And we wanted to do the same thing. And regardless on if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and if you get recharged by being around people or not, just know that like this is an industry filled with really kind-hearted people, and the ones that I'm trying to think like where I'm going with this and how to kind of phrase this. Like you will succeed if people can see like your true heart and like that you have a good heart for it. I remember us doing a
Mhm.
mentorship with a wedding planner. I think it was like a year or two ago. And she was kind of telling us, like, I think you just need to like show up a little bit more and like go to these things and do this stuff like networking wise. And I'm like, yeah, but my hesitation is I never want people to think that I'm a social climber. And she's like, "But, like, I know you guys and you don't give off that, like, social climber energy." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, that's good." Like, that's what I want. I don't want people to, like, just kind of think that I'm, like, this slimy, like, networking person that we really do enjoy, and, like, you find your tribe within that. And the same thing with, like, Engage. Engage is this, like, big, huge networking, fabulous event, and then there may be hundreds of people there, but you all kind of start from what I've heard, I've never been. You all kinda start to form your own little, like, micro communities within Engage. Is that true, Taylor?
Well, at this point, I've only been to one, so I feel like for me personally, it's too soon to tell, but I can tell you this really great story. So on night 2 of Engage, it's like they kind of follow the same formula every time. So if you've been, you're gonna be nodding your head with me. If you haven't been, like maybe this is new to you. But so like night 2, they'll do what's called a dine around. That's what it's called. And basically what they do is they will assign you to a table at dinner with like a bunch of people that you don't know. And like it's assigned seating. Like that's where that's where you sit. And those are the people that you talk to until dinner is over. So it's great because it kind of pushes you to maybe not sit with your friends that you would default to. And when I went to Dove Mountain in December of 22, I guess. Yeah. And there was this woman there who was from New York City. I want to say she was a planner, and she was telling me about how she met her like engaged bestie the first time for the first time 8 years ago. And now that's like what like they always try to make sure they go to the same engaged together and like they always hang out and like they're just like engaged best friends. It's kind of like when you meet like people on vacation and they're like your vacation best friends.
For
Like
summer camp, yeah.
yeah, like okay, so I'm an introvert, but like I've had like vacation besties who are like from like our honeymoon who like we're still like friends on Facebook with
Cool.
a decade later. Yeah, so like, I don't hate people. I just like being alone. Um, but I was like, okay, that's so cool to know. Like, yeah, you form a couple connections and like that becomes something that follows you around or with in the days of social media, like it's so easy to stay in touch. It's not like you have to like pick up the phone or anything like that,
Yeah.
like maybe our parents would have to do back in the day. But yeah, so I think you kind of form like these little tribes, these little relationships. And, it's so easy too to like already know who's going to engage or similar, networking events that may roll out in the future because generally when they do the rollouts, like they'll post on Instagram like the date and like the location. And then you can see in the comments people who like said, like, cool, I'm registered, can't wait. So you can kind of go through and like see, like, ooh, like who's going to be there? Do I know anybody going? And then you just get in people's DMs like, hey, I've been
Yeah.
following you for a while. I'm so excited to finally meet you. Like, I want to buy you a drink or, well, it's all inclusive. You don't have to buy him a drink. You just get him a drink, but, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So, I can't even remember the point of what we were talking about. I'm just going down a rabbit hole.
There's been a lot of rabbit holes on this one. I
Sorry,
guess
guys.
okay, let's give people some value here.
Yes.
Okay, as an introvert, what is the best advice that you can give to a fellow introvert on how to get started and like your best tip, introvert to introvert on networking?
Okay. This is so great. So I do not thrive in a let's grab lunch, let's grab coffee environment. That sounds horrible. I would rather have my wisdom teeth removed a second time. Um, so what I actually prefer instead is I love having a collaborative goal. So, I've really utilized like styled shoots like as my networking chances. Like I've, done some myself where like I bring on, the creative team and like that's like kind of like a bonding. It's like bonding. It's like a group project at school will bring kids closer. So that's how I see it. Like I love like shared experiences with an end goal in mind. So
Mm,
that's one. And then also like truly, truly, truly maximizing any organic moment where you're gonna be around people. So like the wedding day is one. Like I I do my very best to be as extroverted as I possibly can on a wedding day and like form as many like great relationships as I can that can then be like carried through and just kind of strengthened and nurtured through social media. So maybe I'm not like forming new relationships out in the wild, but I do my best to maximize FaceTime and then like continue nurturing online because I can be by myself in my PJs and be in people's DMs.
okay, this is so interesting because so what I'm hearing from you is that you probably don't have like the capacity to because our job is just inherently very like you kind of have to put on like an extroverted front for those things. So it kind
Mhm.
of sounds like to me that you almost like hit two birds with one stone and approach your networking at the same time as you're working on your business. So either shooting a wedding, doing an editorial styled shoot, whatever that may be. Am I right?
Yes, or even down to like being really selective with which photographer you use for family sessions or for your headshots. Like that's a networking
So
opportunity.
smart.
And
Yes.
to align yourself with brands. Yeah, so maximizing moments that are going to happen anyway instead of like letting those moments go.
Okay, this is
Yeah.
so good. Okay, introverts, I hope that you're like mind blown on this, that you don't need to like go down 60 different rabbit holes to try to like find all these little networking connections. You can really just maximize what you're already doing in your business and for your business, but approach it at the same time with a networking touch. So good. As an extrovert to extrovert, extroverts listening in, tuning in, I do totally the opposite. I am totally like, I mean, yes, I'm all for like making the connections on the wedding day or whatever, but I am definitely the type too that's like learning more and deeper layers of like, oh, hey, planner, like you live in Orange County. Oh my gosh, like, where do you live? do you have any what are some of your hobbies? Oh my gosh, you love going to Trim Fitness. I love doing the Versa Climber at Trim Fitness. We should do a class together. Like I'm totally that person, which I can tell Taylor's already breaking out in hives.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that's kind of like more of my thing. It's like I'm taking it from a deeper level, totally separate from business and creating like new deeper connections to the relationship, whether it be like, oh, before I had kids too, there would be so many times where like I would see maybe a planner that worked at this coffee shop that I really enjoyed working at, or I sometimes worked at too. And then I would just very organically be like, we should do a work date together. Like if we're gonna be there, like, it's a coffee shop we both work out of sometimes. Um, and then we'd like do lunch together and things like that. So two very, very different approaches with Taylor and I, and both yield in really great results. And it's all just a matter of like where you see yourself like thriving in the best way possible from a networking standpoint.
Yeah, to me, I think it's one of those things where it's like you you can't expect to like crash diet and basically like not eat anything and then like lose 20 pounds and keep it off. Like you're gonna kind of swing in the opposite direction and like go binge because it was not like a sustainable way to for you to go about it, right? Like we've all kind of like, probably have maybe struggled with that. Just me, never mind. Um,
No,
but
me
if
too.
you do, yeah. But if you do something that's sustainable, then you can be consistent. I think that consistency is more
Yeah.
important. Like if you reach out to a planner one time and grab lunch and then like ghost them because you're like, ah, that was horrible. Like I almost feel like that's like not good. So I feel like whatever you pick, like it needs to kind of feel natural and sustainable and something that you can do consistently over time to yield results. It's actually super interesting too. Well, for me personally, like sometimes I'm just so ingrained in my own ways of doing things that I never really even like consider other options because it literally just never dawned on me. Like we'll be texting Kelley and you'd be like, "Oh, I just finished a hike with insert like planner's name." And I'm like, "What? You just did what?" Like I would literally never think to ever do that. And I mean, I know you have like friendships that have been, a decade long and it goes really beyond business, but um I'm like my husband makes fun of me all the time because I hold time, like my time, as the highest form of currency. I don't like to feel like I've ever wasted time. I start feeling resentful if I feel like other people waste my time. Like my time is so limited. Like really my kids are only in school from 8 to like 1:15 when I need to pick them up. So like every day, like I really don't have that much time. And I feel like sometimes I have to be so scrutinizing with how I do spend that time. That if I'm not like, this is going to yield results 100%, like I don't want to go there. So it maybe like I'm just so out of the habit of even like thinking about fun things like going on a hike or getting a mani pedi with a whatever. Actually, I would love to talk about this too. I saw this on a Facebook group this morning. And now that we have more photographer listeners, this will actually be kind of interesting. Like, if you guys are listening to this, and you have some input, like, shoot us a little DM on Instagram. We would love to just kind of like hear your take on this. We're at the Level Up Co. if you don't follow us, but it was a male videographer who said something along the lines of like, I feel like men and women have to approach relationships with wedding planners kind of differently because most wedding planners are women and guys can't just be like, do you, do you want to go grab a drink after work if both parties are like married? And I thought that was so interesting. And then I saw someone on there comment in like try to do like a double date, like bring your wife and have her bring the husband, like that's fine too. And I was like, okay, well this is like a whole deeper layer of networking that like stepping on toes and like making sure everything's like kosher, you know?
Kosher. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. Being like very intentional but like protective of each
Mhm.
other's like marital status or things like that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. Paul
That's
and I
probably where
definitely
group
have,
things is really great. Like how you do like lots of
yeah,
dinners with like 10 people. I feel like that's
groups.
the better setting. Personally,
Yeah.
like you do you boo. Like whoever's listening to this, like we're not going to tell you how to live your life, but that feels
Yeah.
safe to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that that's really great. I think the group setting thing is perfect. And That's such a good point. I'm so glad that someone like kind of recognized that because there might be some people that may not know that they're crossing a boundary that they're crossing. This actually, okay, this was like years and years and years ago. And we are friends with like these photographer or this photographer and his wife and stuff still. But back before I had kids, I was like in my mid 20s. Like Paul and I have like we have just like boundaries on our marriage on like how we spend time with like the opposite sex in a like private situation or more one-on-one situation, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I was training for like half marathons and like and marathons a lot, so I was running a lot. And this male photographer, super great guy, just doesn't have like the same type of boundaries that like Paul and I have decided that we wanted to like set for our marriage. Was like, hey, like let's go running together. Like we like hit me up anytime that you're going running and we can like run together. And like I totally know that his intentions were like the purest. Um and but like I was always like, "Oh, that's so," like I would just kind of be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, totally." But like I always knew that that was like not some like not a line I was going to cross. So
Hmm.
it's totally okay to set whatever boundaries that you've set in your personal life, make sure that you're setting those too in your professional. This is just like mother hen Kelley right now giving some sort of advice.
Yeah, no, I would totally have to agree with that. And James and I are very similar. And it's not, I'm sure the same with you and Paul, but like he's never told me what to do. I'm self-imposing boundaries like for
Yeah,
my like I for me, like and you, but like for me too. Yeah, no, that gives me total hives. Like even thinking about like any fuzzy boundaries happening or anything like that. But no, I love it. And this is just such a great example. I was texting my friend who she's a filmmaker and she was like, "Oh, me and," she names off five people. She was like, "We're going to a baseball game tomorrow." And I was like, "That's so great. Like that's perfect. Like all in mixed company. Like that's the perfect thing." So like get a group text together, send out a group DM, like whatever it is. Like I think that this is like advice that I give my kids. We're getting into like my oldest daughter's like 8, friendship, things are happening and a lot of guidance is kind of needed for that kind of older little kid. And one thing that I'm trying to like hit home with her is like you don't need to wait to be invited to something. You don't have to wait to be like asked. It doesn't need to come to you. You can be like the inviter. Like you can reach out. You make it happen. You don't have to wait for it to like happen to you because I don't know about you, but like adolescence is hard. It feels hard being left out or never invited or whatever. And it's like, but have you ever reached out and invited them first? Like maybe they don't know you want to go. So like I think it's fine to be the organizer of an event or of a meetup or of a date night out, like or you know what I mean, like double date, triple date, dinner, whatever it may be. And this is coming from an introvert, like I would totally do that. But yeah, if you're like people in my local market are so clicky, like they all get together. I see them on Instagram stories without me, like like I feel uncomfortable and it's like, well, you can be the one to like plan something. I think that's
totally.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have Paul and I do this. He makes like really great Taco Bell people. If you know me, you know I love Taco Bell. And Paul makes really great homemade Crunchwrap Supremes. And we have like a small little like close-knit group that does Crunchwrap nights. And then people have heard or they've seen on Instagram about these Crunchwrap nights, and they're like, wait, where's my invite? Or like, I want to be invited to the next one. And so like I think that's so great to like make it be known that you want to be included in on these things because I probably would have never known. And it's not that I'm really trying to like keep people out of our little like Crunchwrap crew, but I just wouldn't even think about it. Or like you, Taylor, people are very, very protective of their time. And so I feel like for me, I am more and more protective of my time too. Like, just with young kids and things like that and defined hours of working, that I would be afraid that like the invite would be not worth their time in a way, or I don't know. I just always kind of assume that like people have their own things going on. So I actually love when people like DM and be like, a planner friend or a photographer friend being like, okay, so I'm coming to the next one, right? And I'm like, yeah, you are, you're coming. So yeah, take initiative for like these networking opportunities, either like letting it be known, like, that's so fun. Like, I'd love to like join up with you guys sometime, or just like forming your own thing and creating that meetup for yourself with other people.
I love that. So I'm so jealous of you because I feel like Orange County, LA, like it's so heavy on like the amount of creatives in the wedding industry. Like so many
It's
people live down
so
there.
true.
I mean, there are. So I live in like a suburb outside of Sacramento, and I actually do know like at least like five other filmmakers who live in my city, and it's like not a big city, and at least two planners. So I'm like, okay, there's some people. Um, but I love that you invite people into your home. I think that's really, really cool. And I would never do that, but I'm like, I wish I would. Like, I wish I could. I wish I felt like I was comfortable with that. But because I think there's like something so like vulnerable and real about that. So like if you're listening and you're like, yeah, I actually do have like another photographer or two in my city and like we're tight, like I think that's such a great idea. Throw your own crunch wrap crew night and tag us if you do.
I love it. No, it is so true how crazy it is. I didn't even tell you this, Taylor, but so my son's in T-ball, you know that. And so yesterday we had a T-ball game, and we're just over at the Little League fields doing T-ball, and I don't know if you guys know the Hubs films. They're a husband and wife team. They're super great. And we were just by chance, like their daughter was playing on like the opposing T-ball team. And then like her dad or Jeremy was like the third base coach. And I'm like, how funny, like that the community within Orange County is like, there's so many photographers, filmmakers, planners, you name it, that you could literally just be like showing up to a Tuesday T-ball game and then kind of have a little built-in networking situation right there.
Yeah. It's almost it feels so unnatural. It's almost like, do you remember being a kid and seeing a teacher outside of
Yes.
school, like at Target or
Yes.
something? You're like, this feels so strange. I feel like it's the same thing, but right before I brought you on to Level Up, Kelley, there was an episode with Andrea Eppolito, and it was titled "Living Your Brand." So if you guys are listening to this, like scroll back 50 or 60 episodes and listen to that one because it's really, really good. But it's basically like we are our brand even outside of weddings, and to like when you're out in public, like when you might cross paths, even with you don't think you will. I think it's so important to kind of like just know, have an awareness that like you are your brand, right? So like she tells a story of like she runs to like the corner store or something right after she has surgery, and she's in her stained sweats and no makeup and like dirty hair, and a an engaged woman who had been following her for a really long time like was like, "Are you Andrea Eppolito?" She's like, "Oh God."
Oh no.
Yeah, so I feel like that's like such a great kind of thing, like bringing it back to like the business and the branding thing is like just remember that like networking can kind of hit you anywhere, at any time,
Yeah.
at any place, at the airport. Oh my God, I've heard so many stories of like, especially like for people who do a lot of, destination weddings, obviously like the Denver airport is a big hub, like so many
Yeah.
flights lay over there. And so like you never know who you're gonna run into. Like make sure you just kind of know that like maybe that planner or that photographer, that filmmaker, or that florist, whatever, like they're gonna recognize you. And I think that's so fun and cool.
Yeah. We totally
Yeah.
ran into one of our past clients at the Denver airport one time. That's so funny. It really is just like such a hub of that. I probably was not expecting to run into anybody I knew at the Little League fields. So I don't know if I was living my best brand self at the time. But it's all good, right? I think like everybody at the T-ball fields is like wearing their yoga pants and their tennis shoes and their t-shirts and whatever, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
all
with the
good.
folding camping chair in tow.
Yes, yes, it's fun. But yeah, I feel like if you're an extrovert, if you're an introvert, just know that there's no right or wrong way to be to also find success in networking. If you're a photographer, filmmaker, whoever you are, Taylor and I, we've talked about it today on this episode that we have wildly different approaches and both have served us really well in their own right. And I think one of the biggest takeaways, if you took any notes or take away something from this episode, is exactly what Taylor said. do things that feel natural to you, that feel sustainable to you, so that you're approaching this networking with a level of consistency that you're going to be able to maintain and keep up with, and not, try to go all in on that crash diet networking and then be like, "Oh my gosh, this is like so not me," and then retract back, and then maybe it puts a bad taste in someone's mouth because they think that you just ghosted them or you were in it for a quick buck. So, I hope that like some of these techniques that Taylor and I have talked about, or maybe we've brought some more normalcy if you're an introvert and think like, oh, I have to be an extrovert to be successful, or vice versa. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And you'll find your crew wherever you are.
Yeah, so true. And really, just like a last parting thought is it's the long game. Like, I wish we could wave a magic wand and tomorrow have like all the best relationships with all the most amazing people in the industry, but like it's like a daily grind, a daily thing that will compound over time. And I think that being patient and knowing that you're doing everything in your power to like move the needle is so important. Like don't give up. Don't be like, well, I've been doing this thing for 30 days and I haven't gotten a booking yet. Like, okay, like let's be realistic. Like we're talking about the longevity of your career. We're not talking about making an extra $1,000 tomorrow. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
it's the long game.
Yeah, we all want long-lasting careers. That's why you're listening here. That's why you're a part of our Level Up community, because we want to create profitable, long-lasting legacy businesses. And so that's why we're here to kind of give you the roadmap to be able to create that. So it's not just about booking 2 extra weddings for that season, and then moving on. It's about, where is your business going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? So I hope you guys liked this one. It was a very organic conversation, something that Taylor and I just decided on a whim that we thought would be valuable for you guys to listen to. And we hope you guys are having a great season so far. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. Please help us reach more filmmakers and photographers like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it to social media. And don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.